Episodes Money with Friends. I'm Joe. This is my friend Paula from Afford Anything. Paula's in an undisclosed location. We just got done doing a really good Afford Anything podcast. I thought that was fun, Paula.
Oh, that was a great podcast. We answered questions that came in from the Afford Anything community, from my community. We answered 5 questions. It went for more than an hour and a half. So we went in depth with a lot of our answers.
We did, and we had the obligatory power outage.
Yes.
We all this is the bingo sheet stuff that we did. We had a power outage. We had a reference to Molly Ringwald that Paula didn't understand. So we're checking all the boxes. It was fantastic. We had somebody who was worried about fees.
Yes. yes. It's like it's recording bingo. It's personal finance podcasting bingo.
We have to create one of those. I think that would be great. All right. So for everybody who's hanging out with us live, either on YouTube or on Facebook, feel free to join the show. We're going to be recording 2 episodes live. So down in the comments below, we'll see them as they come up, and you can be in the show as well. Paula and I will have some fun chatting with you guys and chatting with each other. So, hey, Matt. Easy, man. I'm sitting right here. I'm sitting right here, Matt. That's so not funny. Okay,
that is hilarious.
Should I talk about my trip to Bavaria?
Oh, yes. That would be a good one on the bingo board.
Yes. Or my trip to Southeast Asia. We could do that one. Yeah. How to teach online kindergarten. Is that your job, Jacob? Oh, my goodness. Online kindergarten. Can you imagine, by the way, there's a school system here locally. I'm in Cleveland. My sister was telling me there's a school system locally where they're saying that every kid has to wear a mask. Can you imagine kindergartners trying to keep kindergartners masks on?
I mean, I can see that going one of 2 ways, because they're not yet like rebellious. So it could just be that if they all learn, like, this is what we do. I saw a couple of kids the other day who were wearing masks, and they pulled it off like it was the most natural thing in the world. Yeah. And I think it was because they were so young that they weren't even questioning it.
Yes.
I could totally see, like, if kids are young enough that you're like, well, this is what we do now. Kids will be like, okay, this is what we do now.
Yes. And then they share masks with each other.
I'll trade you.
They draw the mask. Here, let me lick mine first before I give it to you. Yes, that's great. Yeah, it just the term Petri dish comes to mind. Of course, I have to say I had to be on a plane a week and a half ago, and I felt the same way with adults, just like a plane that was a Petri dish. So good time, good fun. All right, guys. Paula, you ready to make a show?
Let's make a show.
All right. This is going to be live for tomorrow, everybody. And let me tell you what we're talking about first on here. And it's going to be, how about this? U.S. economy craters. Fantastic.
Wow. Lovely.
Zombie apocalypse.
With some positive news.
Right. Only better than zombie apocalypse not happening this quarter. So, all right. I'm going to hit record and get where's my opening? Everyone watching live for the first time, you get to see all the exciting stuff, like how we really make the show, which is liberal amounts of duct tape. Okay, here we go. U.S. economic data released in the last. Do that again. U.S. economic data released in the last few days. #shock. Doesn't look great. When you read financial headlines like these, though, what do you think about them? We'll ask thought leader Paula Pant from the Afford Anything podcast that question and more on today's August 1st episode of Money with Friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast, coming to you live from my mom's half-finished basement that has moved to Cleveland, Ohio for a few days. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy.
And I'm Paula Pant.
From
the Afford Anything podcast.
Fantastic. This is the podcast where we cover recent stories ripped from the financial press. Today, we're going to tackle one from the Wall Street Journal. Not only do we read them like some podcasts do, but Paula and I are going to dive into how they affect your wallet and what you can do to invest, save, and pay down debt more effectively. And if that's not enough, we'll also share a big idea at the end of today's show you can take with you to be better with money the rest of your day, and all in usually less than 20 minutes. Today's show is brought to you by Acre Trader, investing in farmland simplified. I grew up in West Michigan, which is farm country. I love investing in farmlands, but there's a lot to know to watch the explainer video to understand how it works and to see if you're somebody that it might help, head to acretrader.com/MWF. And if you use that link, acretrader.com/MWF, not only will you see how it works, but you also will help the show. So, because they send us a little thank you for sending you their way. All right, we're going to get into today's show. Paula Pant is back. The last time you and I recorded, we did something that we usually don't do here. We usually are live like we are today on Facebook and YouTube. You and I just met with a glass of wine at our mutual friend Andy Hill's house, and we battled it out.
Yes, absolutely. So Andy has the best podcast setup I've ever seen. I told him that I'm just going to copy his when I make my next podcast setup. But we literally did. We had a glass of wine. We were on our way to a social distancing appropriate party that we were going to go to next, and we knocked out a couple of episodes. I don't even remember what we talked about. What did we talk about?
Well, that's because of the wine. We just had a bunch of fun, and it was great. It was current. It was topical. We were awesome, I'm sure, like we're about to be today. You ready to talk about the economy cratering?
Let's do it.
All right, let's see which one of our friends is going to help us kick off today's show. All right, this piece comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, as I mentioned earlier. It's written by Harriet Torrey, and the headline is, U.S. economy contracted at record rate last quarter. Jobless claims rise to 1.43 million. Harriet writes, the economy contracted at a record rate last quarter in July. Setbacks for the jobs market added to signs of a slowing recovery as the country faces a summer surge in coronavirus infections. The Commerce Department said U.S. gross domestic product, the value of all goods and services produced across the economy, fell at a seasonally and inflation adjusted 32.9% annual rate in the second quarter, or a 9.5% drop compared with the prior quarter. The figures were the steepest declines in more than 70 years of record keeping. Meanwhile, the Labor Department's latest figures on unemployment benefits suggested the job market was faltering. The number of workers applying for initial unemployment benefits rose for the second straight week by a seasonally adjusted 12,000 to 1.3 million in the week ended July 25th, after nearly 4 months of decreases following a late March peak. The number of people receiving unemployment benefits increased by 867,000 to 17 million in the week ended July 18th, ending a downward trend that started in mid-May.
Quote, we're expecting a longer and slower climb from the bottom, unfortunately. And here, the virus will dictate the terms. Beth Ann Bovino, U.S. chief economist at S&P Global Ratings, said, stock markets fell after the figures on output and the labor market provided an updated picture of the pandemic's damage to the economy. The second quarter economic contraction came as states imposed lockdowns in March and April to contain the coronavirus pandemic, triggering a steep drop in output, and then lifted restrictions in May and June, allowing growth to resume. Gains later in the second quarter weren't enough to offset April's steep drop, however. Economists expect the third quarter, which began on July 1st, to show growth, though the summer rise in infections is likely to temper gains. Quote, the ball is going to bounce less high than it should in the third quarter, said James Sweeney, chief economist for Credit Suisse. As with new virus outbreaks, quote, we know there is an incremental slowing of economic activity.
Lots of frustration here, Paula, and obviously this was pretty expected. There was no way we weren't going to have a good quarter, right? Everybody staying at home, nobody leaving home. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure Netflix, I haven't even looked this up, but I'm sure Netflix had a great quarter.
I'm sure Zoom did.
That's right. And it's funny. I even added Disney Plus last quarter just because I was at home so much, and I'm going to be canceling one of those pretty soon as hopefully life at some point returns to normal. The main reason I picked this piece isn't for the economic data that we all know about already. It's that you and I have known each other for quite a long time, Paula, and I think that you and I think a little differently when we hear this than most people do. So as you were reading this, as you heard this data, what kind of things go through your head?
Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is, while it is normal While it is standard practice to take the numbers of a quarter and project it out for a full year, project it out to see what that looks like in terms of the annual rate, don't be scared off by the fact that it is a 32.9% annual rate, because the next couple of quarters may not be as bad as the prior quarter. So the 9.5% drop in the prior quarter, yes, that's a 32.9% annual rate, but only if every quarter is identical to the last one. It may be the case that 9.5% drop is the worst quarterly result that we have, and future quarters tend to get better. So we do know what the prior quarter number is. We don't know at the end of 2020, in hindsight, what our 2020 annual number is going to be. We do know it's going to be bad one way or the other.
Sure.
We just don't know how bad.
No, but what's interesting about that is this is also going to temper future quarters, which I also think about for our fans hanging out with us or listening that pay attention to their investments far more than they should, probably like I do.
Mhm.
You know what you're going to see, Paula? You're going to see improvements, and people are going to say the economy stunk in the third quarter, but it was better then, which means that we may see from short-term traders in the stock market, we may actually see things end up a little better than we'd hoped. I wouldn't be surprised to see, even though economic data is bad, if we compare it to the second quarter, people go, well, look at, we're improving. And because we're improving, the stock market should continue to pick up. So all these people talking about doom and gloom, you know, I mean, maybe it does happen. And obviously we don't trade on that information, but it always makes me think, where's the opportunity and what could happen differently than we expect? And if the stock market decides, and that's a whole nother discussion, if the stock market decides that we're going to compare things to this quarter, every comparison is going to look flippin' rosy compared to this quarter.
Well, I wouldn't say that with too much certainty. There's always the possibility that next quarter could be even worse.
Well,
but
and actually, it's funny that you say that, because I also think, I mean, it's not in this headline, but it's in other headlines, the fact that a lot of this government stimulus now is ending. And so if the government doesn't give another round of stimulus, what's the fallout going to be from that? Are we going to see unemployment accelerate? Are we going to see things go back? And then we also have, you know, I was looking at a data tracker today about coronavirus. While it looks like over the last just few days, so this changes day by day, over the last few days, we've seen the number of new cases kind of stall. The death rate's going up fairly quickly right now, which you know, doesn't fill me full of hope.
Right. You know, what we did see in April and May is that as a result of particularly the enhanced unemployment benefits with the added $600 a week, the poverty rate nationally actually decreased by some measures, and many households, particularly lower income households, saw their household income increase. And so, because of the enhanced unemployment benefits, if that ends, that will absolutely have a major reverberating effect across the economy.
It'll be interesting to see, I mean, what happens there. And by interesting, we're in uncharted territory, and people don't know. If you're looking for bright spots in this data, though, Paula, if you're somebody that's lucky right now to have a job, you talked about poverty on one end. Let's talk about somebody that's lucky right now to have a job. They have income stream. Maybe they work for Zoom. Life is pretty good.
And they have a side job at Peloton.
How do you think about this investment wise?
Well, so let's also add in the context that right now, cash is basically free. Borrowing, you know, the Federal Reserve is lending money for basically nothing. When cash is free and liquidity is so freed up, it makes sense that future cash flow would then become more valuable. So in terms of the performance of the stock market, in that regard, it does make sense that that future cash flow is more valuable, and therefore people would want to be piling into stocks now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think even if there is some hurt coming still,
Mhm.
I mean, even if the next couple quarters are bad, even the next year's bad, the next year and a half is bad,
Mhm.
man, to the extent that you can invest during this time period, I think this is where you and I look at it differently than somebody with no experience in the markets. They see this data and they're like, man, I should get out. Man, this looks horrible. I really need to get out. You and I have the same basic thing, which is no, if you can, get in.
Right, right, exactly. And what we've seen historically is that recessions are great times to invest if you have a long time horizon. So if you have both the capacity and the tolerance to be able to hold your investments for decades, then recessions are a very good time to pile more money into investments.
In just a moment, Paula and I are going to have our big takeaway. Hers will be way better than mine, I promise.
Uh-oh.
For today, no pressure, Paula.
Yeah, seriously.
For today's show, got to say a big thanks to Acre Trader for supporting Money with Friends. You know, investing in farmland is much simpler than being a farmer. When I first heard about companies like Acre Trader, I thought, no way, you don't want to be a farmer. I lived in West Michigan. Being a farmer is super hard and very technical. Investing in farmland, though, is very simple. Acre Trader takes a piece of farmland, they purchase it for a price that they think is a good price. They subdivide it, and you own a little piece of that land. You don't farm it. Acre Trader finds the farmer, negotiates with the farmer, works on soil sustainability. The farmer then every year before they have a good crop or a bad crop, frankly, to you, whether it's a good crop or bad crop doesn't matter. It's just that the farmer stays in business, right? Because they are paying you a consistent rent check once a year. So you not only get your dividend once a year, your payout, your rent coming in, but you also own this piece of farmland. And as there's less and less farmland over the years, as we have less and less and better farming and ways that we create food, you find that the value of that farmland historically has been very boring, but boring in a good way. So farmland versus gold, farmland versus bonds, I look at that much differently. There's something else to remember, though, about farmland. You're locked in. If you own a piece of farmland and you have an emergency, you can't just peel off a couple rows of your cornfield to go get money. So you need to watch the explainer video. It's also only open to accredited investors. So you want to look up what that is. So head to acretrader.com/MWF. I really like it. Doesn't mean it's right for you, but if it does, use our link, acretrader.com/MWF, and begin investigating how Acre Trader works. I do not miss, Paula, those days working in cornfields.
I have no experience with that, so I cannot imagine it, cannot speak to it.
Well, the funny thing is, we were in these. I did this thing called detasseling corn, which is taking that floury top off of the corn. And while we did that, we were in these baskets that were in the cornfield, and you would pull them off. So you were raised up. You and I have known each other a long time. You could be in that basket, and you still would have to reach way above your head to get to the. You don't like my short joke?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm 5'1", so yeah, I have to, it's a given for me.
It would have still been, I could see Paula in that basket with also a little step stool.
Yes.
To detassel corn. Yeah.
Some phone books that I'm sitting on.
That's right. Well, here's the deal though. Detasseling corn, not your specialty, but things like this are. What's your big takeaway for today's piece?
Oh, geez. All right. Nice segue, by the way.
Thank you. I learned from you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So big takeaway from today's piece. The prior quarter had a really severe drop, the steepest decline in more than 70 years. But that does not necessarily mean that you need to panic. There are also reasons, valid, logical reasons to be hopeful, not only for the rest of 2020, but for 2021 and 2022, for the near-term future as well.
I love that, which actually it's funny because our takeaways, Paula, go together. Mine is when I read stuff like this, I think about two things. Number one, where is my biggest downside and how do I cover it? And where's my biggest opportunity? If we're looking at these government benefits going away, we're looking at the next quarter, we're looking at maybe continued ugliness. Keeping on track of that is good. Panicking isn't good, though. If I think, though, I'm in a place where I might lose my job, it's time to accumulate cash. Maybe I pay down my debt a little less slowly. And I want to stay on top of how we get these benefits, because we saw, as an example, you and I as business owners, there were some benefits that business owners could get that people didn't pay attention to. And I think you got to stay on top of, especially now. I generally don't advocate staying on top of government benefits and how they work. But right now, I think is a huge time to understand how all these benefits work. On the other side, opportunity wise, if you're in a great place, this is a big opportunity for you. It is a big, and sadly, the best time to invest historically is, and this is horrible, but it's when things are struggling. When things are struggling, if you are lucky enough to not be struggling, it's time to be aggressive as an investor. And by aggressive, I don't mean taking a lot of risk. I mean piling as much investment in as possible. Number one, you're helping the people that are struggling, and number two, you're also helping yourself. So that's
that, and that's what I was going to say. I know at first, as you described, at first blush, it sounds horrible, but really, what would be worse is if no one were investing and no money was flowing into the system. That would be far worse. That would cause even more people to lose jobs. It would only, it would cause both the severity and the duration of the contraction to increase. So investing during a contraction, investing during a recession, infuses the economy with money. And that's exactly what the economy needs in order to recover.
I heard a rumor that you have a podcast.
I do have a podcast.
Oh, how about that?
How did you know? So the podcast is called Afford Anything, and you can download it anywhere where finer podcasts are found. Just go to your favorite podcast playing app, type in Afford Anything, and when you see my podcast, hit the subscribe button or the follow button.
And it magically then appears in your feed, and you get to listen to Paula dive deep into all kinds of fun topics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great guest. And we will also link to Afford Anything on our show notes page at moneywithfriendspodcast.com, and also all of our social media links. Hey, thanks to everybody who hung out with us today on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks to everybody who's left us a review of this show or told somebody, you know what, you got to listen to this because it's very helpful, especially when you read ugly stuff like we read about today. Good news for all of you. I'm not here alone on Monday. Paula's back for more. She and I will see you again. Have a great weekend. 18 minutes. Nice job.
Well, thank you.
Bam.
Thank you.
All right, guys, you guys were quiet. Everybody was very quiet. We have Matt and Jacob. Either that, or we have had times when I just, for some reason, BeLive doesn't show us the comments, but I think people were just kind of quiet. All right, we're going to do another one here. And once again, feel free, everybody, to chime in and be a part of the show. This is going to be about, Paula brought this piece from the New York Times about business travel recovering. This is an interesting take too, about, yeah, I can't wait to get into this. All right. Let me get this stuff all set up. Okay, so before we hit record again, you're going to read down to
the ad break.
Among other services, yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay. Awesome.
Cue me when I should start reading.
Yeah, I'll open it up again, and we'll do the whole open the way we just did.
Okay.
So no need there. All right. I just got to get one more thing. Come on, Joe. Nope, not that. The thing slowing me down is that I insist on keeping 72 tabs open. I don't know why. All right, let's record another one. This is for August 3rd. I can't believe August 3rd. All right, here we go. Well, airlines rely on Well, airlines rely on business travel for a big part of their profits. So the key to figuring out when airlines are back to normal relies a ton on how business travelers return. When do we find this new normal? Paula Pant from Afford Anything joins us for today, August 3rd's edition of Money with Friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast, coming to you live one more time from Cleveland, Ohio, where we make the Stacking Benjamin show. I'm Joe Salsi. Hi.
And I am Paula Pant from Afford Anything.
Awesome. And you are in an undisclosed location today.
Absolutely. No one can ever know.
This is the podcast where we cover recent stories ripped from the financial press. Today from a little publication you may have heard of called the New York Times. Don't know. And today we're going to read a piece of it like some podcasts do, but we're also going to dive into how it affects your wallet and what you can do to invest, save, or pay down debt more effectively. And if that's not enough, we're also going to share a big idea at the end of today's show you can take with you to be better with money the rest of your day, all in usually less than 20 minutes. Today's show is brought to you by NordPass. They lock the passwords. You hold the keys. With NordPass, store your passwords in the cloud, access them on desktop, mobile, or your favorite browser, all encrypted on your device for your eyes only. You'll get 50% off, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and a free month just because you listened to us today. Head to nordpass.com/MWF. And not only will you get that free month, 50% off, and the 30-day money-back guarantee. We'll actually get 30-day money-back guarantee whether you use our link or not. Head to nordpass.com/MWF. Nord is in Nordic. When I think Nordic, I think Paula Pant. How are you?
Wow. I had no idea that those two terms were associated with one another, but...
Well, for a long time you were in the desert, right?
Yes, I was in the desert for 5 years.
Absolute opposite of Nordic, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But I grew up in Ohio, which has very cold winters.
It can be Nordic there.
Yes, exactly. And when I was a kid, our family had a Nordic track. Do you remember that little exercise machine?
Yes. I don't know if you knew this, but a Nordic track is fantastic for hanging laundry on. It's amazing. Well, today we're going to talk about business travel. Paula and I have been two people in the business of traveling lately, quite a bit, maybe more than we want to. To kick it off, though, let's see which one of our friends is going to help us start today's show. All right, today's piece comes to us, as I mentioned earlier, from the New York Times. Paula, you picked out this piece. First of all, why did you pick this one?
Because business travel, I think, is, first of all, I imagine a lot of the people who are listening to this were business travelers, or at least had friends or family members or colleagues who were business travelers prior to the pandemic. And so the almost instant obliteration of business travel that happened so unexpectedly just a few months ago had a massive effect, not only economically, not only on the airline industry and the hotel industry, but also on a lot of people's lifestyles. And so this, to me, the concept of business travel is something that really touches on a lot of different aspects of life, from industry and economy and money to, to the way that you live and the amount of time that you spend exploring new cities or at your own home.
Today's piece is written by Jane Lever, and the title is Best Guess on Where Business Travel Will Recover. On when business travel will recover. It could be years. Paula?
While business travel evaporated in a flash when the coronavirus hit, it may take 2 to 3 years for it to fully recover, far longer than many travel experts initially predicted. Even that timeline, said Henry Hardevelt, president of Atmosphere Research Group, a travel market research firm in San Francisco, depends on, quote, the broader economy, the industry a firm operates in, and demand for its products and services, as well as the public health environment. And 2 to 3 years may be too optimistic, at least for a recovery by the major airlines. Michael Durchin, an airline analyst, described the effect of the coronavirus pandemic on carriers as, quote, September 11th and the Great Recession on steroids. He estimated that it could take airlines 7 years, if not longer, to recover. While business travelers make up about 10% of all passengers on the major airlines, including American, Delta, United, Lufthansa, and Singapore, they generate half the airline's revenue, Mr. Durchin said. And Mr. Hartfelt estimated that business travelers were responsible for 55 to 75% of major airlines' profits worldwide. Not only do business travelers buy more expensive and profitable tickets, they are also more likely to hold airline credit cards and buy airport lounge memberships, among other services.
As for hotels, business travelers generate about 70% of Marriott's and Hilton's global revenue, said Robin Farley, lodging analyst at UBS. She predicted that the common measure of hotels' financial health, revenue per available room, would not return to 2019 levels until 2023 or 2024. Michael Belisario, lodging analyst for the financial services firm Baird, also doesn't see revenue per available room recovering until 2023 at the earliest, he said. He added that he believed that large urban U.S. markets, which generally contain bigger, more profitable hotels, would lag behind smaller ones. Marriott is seeing a slow return of domestic bookings, though many are by leisure travelers in vacation destinations. It said about 70% of its corporate clients worldwide were expected to ease or lift restrictions on employee travel within the next 3 months. Well, I read that, Paula. Okay, companies in the next 3 months may ease travel restrictions, let their employees travel more. But I've got to think, now that the new normal seems to be for a lot of us working from home, there's a big piece of me that thinks if I've got friends, family, colleagues here locally, or I can reach them on a Zoom call, and I've gotten used to that, it's going to take a lot more to get me in an Uber to take me down to the airport to get on a plane to go across the country than it did 6 months ago.
Absolutely. I think that when they talk about easing restrictions for business travel, they're talking about the minor subset of only the most critical business travel. If there is some type of thing that just absolutely cannot be done by Zoom, or that would be significantly harder to be done by Zoom, maybe a training of how to use some incredibly specific, complicated piece of equipment, something like that, for example, sure, maybe that will open up, but that's going to be such a small subset of overall business travel. People are not, even with restrictions easing, people are not going to be flying just to take meetings. That we're all doing that on Zoom now.
But it is funny. I agree with you, but I also think that there's an important contract that needs to be signed. You've probably seen the studies like I have that I'm not getting it from the Zoom call. I don't get the same interaction. Heck, when you and I said it, when we recorded last time we were together a month ago, when we recorded together, it was just being in the same room with somebody. There have been studies that show that you get a chemical reaction as a person being in the same room as somebody that you can't get in on Zoom. And which is why all of these, playing games together on Zoom, that you do with friends, it just doesn't feel the same. You don't get that same thing as you do together. So I think if you've got an important contract to sign, still getting on a plane, being with the person in the room to answer their questions, there's going to be this person to person impact that you can't get.
I mean, that's true in normal situations, but the change right now, and the thing that makes this year different than other years in which virtual versus in-person has been studied, is that this year there's almost an open question. If a business were to send somebody on an airplane to meet me, or to meet you, wouldn't you, in the context of the year 2020, question the judgment of that business?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no. I don't think it's gonna change at all this year. And frankly, I think that there could be a lawsuit there. I think HR would go, you can't do that.
Right.
You can't put your employee on a plane because there's just too much. Well, on the downside, if your company's just a bunch of jerks, there's liability. If your company's good people, it's just keeping your people's well-being in mind. I'm talking about when this is over. Hopefully, God, someday this is over. But when it's over, I still think people then go, yeah, I think I got to get on a plane for this one sometimes.
Right. Eventually it will normalize, but it might not happen until 2023. I mean, and if you think about it, let's say that there's a vaccine that comes out in summer of 2021. And then the first people who get vaccinated are the frontline workers and the essential workers. The second people are the elderly. It might take a while for this vaccine to be disseminated to a 35-year-old business consultant.
Yeah.
And so let's say that there's a vaccine in the summer of 2021, and a business, a run-of-the-mill business person might not even be able to access that vaccine until December. We're talking 2022 at the earliest, maybe later.
I think that this whole thing about leisure travel picked back up again. What did you think about that?
That's really interesting to me. I would not have guessed that. I would not have expected that.
Is it just that we've been self quarantining for a long time, and so it's time to maybe get out? I mean, I took a leisure travel trip. I didn't like being on the plane, but once I got off the plane, I was in Northern California hiking by myself, right? So it was fantastic. Getting there was not optimal, but once I was there, I mean, and I see people going to some of these, I see pictures of people have, it's just their family on a beach separated from everybody else.
Right.
Maybe it's this reaction to, man, I've been cooped up in my house for so long.
Maybe. I mean, there might be at least some subset of people who have grown wary of everything and who just want to get away. I can understand leisure travel a bit more in the context of a family that has been quarantining or socially distancing together already. So, they already are household members. They live in the same house. I can understand the case of them all getting into the same car and then driving to a destination, and then renting a hotel room at that destination, knowing that a hotel brand like Marriott or Hilton will have done a good job in cleaning the room, disinfecting the room prior to their stay. Yeah, like I can see something like that happening, where essentially a family applies the principles of social distancing to this excursion to a different location. Being on an airplane, however, where you're breathing recirculated air, I mean, that really ups the danger, in my view. That really ups the ante.
Especially, it's funny, we took American Airlines to our destination. This was on a business trip to our destination, and then took Delta home. The difference in airlines was huge too. American Airlines packed us all in. Cheryl had a kid next to her that had a mask on at the beginning. By the end of the trip, his mask was around his chin, and he's trying to offer her food.
Oh.
Yeah. And on Delta Airlines, a seat between Cheryl and I, middle seat empty, signs up saying that they have the best HIPAA filters with the recycled air issue that you're talking about. And that we were handed wipes to wipe everything down as we got on the plane. So a big difference between airlines as well, and on how they're handling it. The interesting thing for me when it comes to this is the travel industry. You and I talked about on Friday's show. We think a little differently about this. This is how I think a little bit differently, maybe about this one. Travel industry needs you to come back, right? They need you to come back. You're going to see some hella deals, but this is a time when I think those deals largely don't matter. Like I could see deals all day to get on a cruise ship. I'm not getting on a cruise ship.
Right. Exactly.
It is funny. We do this show live on Facebook and YouTube, and our system is slow, and it just updated to give us, I think, Paula, the last 20 minutes worth of comments all at one time. Did you see that?
Yeah, exactly. We went from having no comments to all of a sudden we're just seeing a massive number come in.
Yeah. So if you just heard Paula and I take a little pause there, that's exactly why, because we do the show live. If you want to hang out with us, it's facebook.com/iStackBenjamins, the Stacky Benjamins Facebook page. And on YouTube, it's a Money with Friends YouTube page. Go to YouTube /Money with Friends. Jane says, just got back from business trip, 2 days via car, and short as it could be, which seems, Paula, to be the way to do what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, car travel, I think, is safer now because your car can be your own pod, where you're not mixing with other people, you're not breathing recirculated air. Your car is purely your own. Yeah,
it's the last time we traveled, went from Texas to Georgia to Cleveland, all via car. I have to tell you, I'm tired of Sirius satellite radio. Slightly. In just a second, Paula and I are going to have our big takeaways from today's show. So while Paula gathers up what is going to be the best takeaway we've ever had on the show, I just keep applying pressure, Paula, to you. I got to say big thanks to NordPass for supporting Money with Friends. You know, I like using a password manager, and I use NordPass for a few reasons. I personally don't like using a free password manager. I just think the company's got to get their money somewhere. If I'm paying for my password manager, I know that I have an expectation that my data is locked up. The idea of a free password manager always kind of makes me scratch my head. By the way, doesn't make them bad. That's just why I prefer to pay for one. However, when you look at NordPass versus other password managers, the cost very inexpensive, and I get some great benefits. The passwords are locked. I hold the key. I can, by the way, open up NordPass from a browser, from an app. I can put it on my phone. Cheryl puts it on her phone. Wherever I am, NordPass is creating new passwords for each place I visit that are unique and different and hard to unlock. So if somebody does crack my data, they only crack that one place instead of all my different passwords. And the good news is Cheryl and I both know that if something happens to either one of us, we have all of our passwords in one place, and it makes it easy to find. For more on NordPass, for 50% off and for a free month, head to nordpass.com/MWF for more. And I think I only recently, Paula, I'm going to say, and shame on me for this, I've only been using a password manager for about 2.5 years. And I thought, I don't really need one. I've got this great password. Then when I realized I'm using the same password, the same quote, great password on every single place I am,
Right.
I realized how vulnerable I was. And
exactly.
Password manager for the win.
Exactly. Plus, there are so many websites that have different requirements for a password. There's some websites where you have to have an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, a special symbol. There are some that don't let you have the special symbol, some that require 8 characters, some that don't let you go over 8, some that require between 8 to 20, and some that say no more than 8. It's like, you know, when you then get into all of the variations in requirements that each website requires, yes. It's hard to even use the same consistent not that you should, it's a bad idea, but even if you wanted to, it's hard to use the same consistent password.
Well, and like my bank makes me change mine every 3 months, which I think is smart, right? It's great. But for a while, I was trying to figure out what the hell my password, I kept getting locked out because I couldn't remember what my damn password was.
Right.
And then I started using a password manager. Bam. Yep. I have no idea what my passwords are. Somebody could break in right now to Money with Friends headquarters, aka my sister's house in Cleveland, could say, "Hey Joe, give me all your passwords," and I'd say, "I don't know."
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best analogy. NordPass is like, don't use the analogy where you're being held up at your sister's house for your passwords. All right, let's get back to it though, Paula. What's our big takeaway here?
I would say that the big takeaway is if you were a business traveler before coronavirus struck, don't expect that you will be back on the road behaving as a business traveler anytime in the near future. You likely won't be business traveling again the way that you used to until at least 2022 or 2023 at the earliest. And if you are interested in leisure travel, if possible, stick to a car to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. You know, my takeaway is very similar, but on a different front. And that is that the, business travel is something I feel like a lot of companies just it's what we've always done. So it's what we're going to do. And companies now have had to rethink their sales cycle, their training cycle, how they work together, just a lot of these fundamental things that we did in business, not because they were the right thing to do, Paula, but because they were easy, right? And now rethinking that makes me think about lots of other areas of my life. How many things have changed about my life because of this pandemic? Like as an example, some of the game playing nights that Cheryl and I have had that we didn't have before, spending some of that time, the walks that we've taken. Oh my, that's been a fantastic addition to our day. Just going out and going for walks has been fantastic. So rethinking these things that we do just because of autopilot, I think that's the, I guess, optimistic Joe. And before you go on a business trip anyway, even after this is over, maybe rethink that. That might be, I mean, look at how much of a profit center this is for airlines. How much money do you save, let alone time and all of those things when it comes to not going on that business trip?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Where do people find more of this amazing Afford Anything podcast?
So the Afford Anything podcast, which I host, is available anywhere where finer podcasts are found. So just go to your favorite podcast playing app. You could go to Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, anywhere where you prefer to listen to podcasts, and search for Afford Anything. And when you find it, hit the subscribe button or the follow button. We're also on YouTube, audio only. So you can go to youtube.com/affordanything and hit the subscribe button.
Tell us about some of the recent guests you've had on, because this is where it gets really fascinating.
Oh, we've had some incredible guests on. So the people who have appeared recently, let's see, Dan Ariely, who is one of the most preeminent behavioral economists in the world.
Yeah.
He joined us, and a little behind the scenes, he also will be joining us again in a few months.
Oh, spoiler.
Exactly. You heard it here first. Dr. Brad Klontz, he is a financial psychologist.
And hilarious.
Yes, exactly. He's an awesome guest. He specializes in the intersection between psychology and finance. And he has a lot to say, a lot to offer about the ways in which we manage our money. Dr. Sarah Stanley Fallow, she is the co-author of The Next Millionaire Next Door. She's the daughter of one of the authors of The Millionaire Next Door. And so she runs a research institution where she studies American millionaires, self-made American millionaires, self-made meaning first generation in their family to be millionaires. And she also shares incredible insight about the ways in which, the millionaire studies that her father did 25 years ago.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah, groundbreaking. But of course, it was also 25 years ago. So she's now updated that for a modern context and talks about what's changed and what's the same.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And people, by the way, going back to Dr. Brad Klontz, he was a member of our team for last season. So longtime listeners know him. If you're a new listener to Money with Friends, go back and you can hear Dr. Brad Klontz here too. Just hilarious. affordanything.com is the place to go. And by the way, we'll link to it in our show notes page at Money with Friends podcast. Coming up tomorrow, it is more fun here on Money with Friends. Paula will be back next month with us from a different, I'm sure, undisclosed location. She's Paula. I'm Joe. We'll see you next time back here at Money with Friends. Bye-bye. That was so wild when all the comments showed up at once.
Yeah, that was crazy.
You guys have no idea, but we had no comments. And all of a sudden there was just this flood of just my whole, and you could, I could hear Paula go,
yeah.
and some of this stuff is hilarious. And boy, that's annoying. I like Matt's passwords. Like, this is my good password. Aren't that good? I didn't know.
Admin is admin and password is password 123.
That's right. Matt's after me today, by the way. I'm sitting right here, Matt. Victor. Hey, Victor, getting COVID safe, dependable children for 2 healthcare workers. Ooh.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Scott also is a physician. Scott and Victor. We got the physicians hanging out with us today. A lot to think about and seriously consider what we're going to totally agree. Our friend Melissa, you and I met Melissa in Detroit. She was at our outdoor meetup that we had. Yeah, agreed. So, oh, hi, there's Paula Pant. Cool.
Hello.
Oh, I see. Jacob, remember talking about teaching kindergarten? My wife and I are teaching him while trying to work remote. Oh, boy. Trying to work and take care of a kindergartner. Yes. Oh my God. Oh, good luck with that one. All right, guys. I got to go help my parents do some demo.
Oh, and someone says they don't feel any love in the YouTube chat section. Hello, YouTube.
Well, the YouTube chat section, but for us is way back here. We've got Chris here, we've got Rockstar here. We got Gregory's here. I don't even know what this is. My hands were sticky with syrup from my French toast. What the?
I mean, that is a valid problem, you know?
Oh, I love going from Vegas to Lake Havasu or St. George, even Zion. Those places been rocking. You're talking about the parks, Chris. I think he's talking about national parks. I have friends that were just in Zion. It didn't look like there were a lot of people there, which was good.
Yeah. And that's a good type of social distancing leisure travel where you can get in the car, you can drive there, and then once you're there, you're hiking. So you're not doing anything indoors.
Have you gone up to Angel's Landing?
A long time ago, yes.
That thing from what's it called? The Owl's Nest. Getting up to the Owl's Nest is fine. Owl's Nest to Angel's Landing. I was sure I was going to die every second.
I don't remember the details of it. It was a while ago.
I remember hanging onto a chain, and there's teenagers kind of going by me more quickly than I would have hoped. And I'm trying not to look down because I've got 1,000 feet down here and 1,000 feet down right here. Yeah. Not great. All right, guys. Sorry, guys, about the lack of interaction, but just getting there. All right, guys.